Hi, folks, and welcome to Watchmen. Today, I just want to take a moment to talk for a moment about the difference between sin, trespasses, and iniquity. And if we take our knowledge of God and we think about the will of God is a land that we live in, and it's a land where God has set the parameters of what we are to do, and some things are permissible and some things aren't permissible, but we live in this flesh, so there's this constant separation between our knowledge and God's knowledge. There's a separation between our character and God's character, our nature and God's nature. So, but God sets the rules. So if we think about this territory of God that we live in, and we think about it like it's a somebody else's property, and let's say we're on somebody else's property, we're walking down a road and we come across somebody else's property. Now, that person might have a sign posted that says, I hope that's not backwards, "Do not enter." So let's say we see a "Do not enter" sign, or let's say we come to somebody else's land and we don't see the "Do not enter" sign. So we're walking down the road, we don't see the "Do not enter" sign, so we walk in. We walk into their land. Now, at that point, we are in sin. Even though we didn't see the sign is there. There are certain things that we are not to do, and we don't always know them, and that is sin. That's to be in error, to be mistaken in our interpretation of God's will. Those are sins. And sin is the real reason why we all fall so far short of perfection, because there's a lot of things that we do that we think that are okay to do because we were raised that way. All the people around us are doing it. We have our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own interpretations. And oftentimes, what we think is okay to do is completely not okay to do in the sight of God. And when we sin, God corrects us. Oftentimes he corrects us by showing us our error. And then we can confess our error once we know we're aware of it, and we can then be forgiven, and God is faithful to forgive. But a sin isn't really, it doesn't demonstrate a flaw in your character. It just kind of demonstrates our innate separation and our inability in that separation to correctly interpret the will of God. So that's sin. Now, next we come to trespasses. So trespasses is, you see this, you're walking down the road, you're approaching somebody else's property, and you see the sign, "Do not enter. Do not enter." You could, at that point, make a decision to go around, to turn back, what have you. But instead of doing that, you go in anyway. Now you're trespassing. Trespassing differs from sin in that it's willful, and it does speak to your character. It could speak to your character, but it speaks probably to a weakness in your faith, where you simply, what you want is more powerful than your faith, and it kind of defeats you. And this is how many times Christians fall into sin. When we talk about falling into sin, where a Christian in their walk, they are living in a way that they know is wrong, and it's afflicted. If you want an example, there's plenty of examples in the Bible, but if you want an example out of Genesis, for instance, Lot, he's living in Sodom, and living among the Sodomites is breaking him down day by day, but he doesn't leave. He doesn't leave. Lot is trespassing the will of God. God is giving him example after example after example that he needs to gather his things and get out. But he won't do it because he has all these other worldly concerns, all these other people who are living this way. So he tells himself day after day that what he's doing is okay and it's not a violation of the will of God. So he is in a place where he saw the sign and he willfully ignored the sign and he went into the place anyway. That is a trespass, voluntary sin, willful sin. So we have sin. It's kind of doesn't really speak to your characters, things that you do where you don't know, you're not really aware that you're outside of the will of God, that you're violating His rules. Trespasses, you know very well that you're violating His rules, and you do it anyway. Now, let's talk about the last one, iniquity. Iniquity is different from sin and trespasses in this. So let's say you're walking along that same road and you come to the same property and you see the sign. The sign says, "Do not enter." But you do this. You change the sign. You simply scratch out the "do not" and you write in, "Please enter." So iniquity differs from sin and trespasses in this regard. Iniquity means that you know the will of God and you despise it. And it is iniquity is fully a matter of your character. And a person whose sins have reached the point of iniquity, this is a person who is acting wickedly. This is a person who is godless. This is a person, what it means in the Greek is to be crooked, to be bent, to be perverse. And it speaks to your character. And iniquity is when you start doing things like knowing the will of God. For instance, iniquity is knowing that it's wrong to commit adultery. But not only are you committing adultery yourself, but you are telling people that it's actually preferable to commit adultery than to live in righteousness in your marriage. That's iniquity. When you are grossly sinning yourself and your gross sins are leading others into sin, and you know it, and you won't turn away, and you won't seek forgiveness. So I hope that understanding the three differences, because we see those three terms in the scripture quite a bit, and that's the how they differ each from each other. All of them are sin, but they're not all the same type of sin, and they don't all come from the same heart. So I hope this helps clarify the difference between sin, trespasses, and iniquity. And keep heeding the call, and keep yourself in the love of Christ. Until we meet again in our regular Bible study, have a great day, folks. Take care.